So for this new unit, we're going to be continuing to talk about those transformations that we discussed in the last unit, reflections, rotations, and translations, but we're actually going to start performing them. In the last unit, we saw them being performed and we used patty paper a lot to perform them. What the goal of this unit is for us to get more familiar and comfortable with using the rules that are out there for these types of transformations and how we can almost take like a little bit of a shortcut on our way to it so that we can make this process a little bit faster and more streamlined for us, okay? So to get started today, we're going to go over reflections again. Now remember, reflections is when you flip something, and so everything goes backwards, and it's all based off of this line of reflection that you're going to see on your paper somewhere, okay? So you can see in your notes right here, especially on the top, we've got these lines of reflection that are being put on here for us. And it's kind of on this weird dotted paper. This is actually called isometric dot paper. So the nice thing about this dot paper is that you can kind of almost use it like you would a coordinate plane, where you can count how far away a point is from the line of reflection using the dots. And then you can just go the exact same amount on the other side of that line of reflection. Now, another option is to still use your patty paper, okay? We should still have patty paper out here, and it's available for you guys to use if you need some. So if you don't have any or you need a new piece, don't be shy and ask for one. And we can still use our patty paper to help us with these if we need to. That might be more helpful, especially when we get into like reflections or even translations. Reflections, I would say you don't have to use your patty paper. Some of you are going to want to just because you're so used to using your patty paper. It's almost like a comfort right now for you to have that as like a tool for you to use. But some of you are going to start to want to do these a little bit faster than having to rely on the patty paper, okay? So let me show you how to use this on just your dot paper. So when I look at this first it kind of is a triangle shape. It's not a true triangle because it's got four sides to it, but this NOUM shape. We're reflecting over this line right here. That's kind of this tall blue line. It's going straight up and down. What I'm going to do in order to do my reflection is I'm going to see how far away from that line the letters N, O, U, and M are from it, and then reflect it over on the other side. So O is one space away from the line. Do you guys all see that? So what I want to do is go on the other side of the line one space as well, because that would be the reflection. Remember, the reflection is going to keep it the same distance away from that line. So I want to put my new O right there on that dot. Okay. Now, as I get going, I'm not going to continue to draw those arrows. I'm just going to be counting. I just wanted you to be able to visualize what I'm talking about right now. So O prime is going to go right here. So I'm just going to draw a dot. And then you are going to need to be labeling these. We talked about that last unit as well. It's really important that you get in that habit of labeling because I need to see that you can graph an original figure, do something to that figure, and graph the new one. So you have to have those labels in there. So O with the little dash for prime. Now let's do the same thing for the U. So if we count from U over to this line, it's 1, 2 spaces. So from the line, we're going to go 1, 2 spaces over, draw another point, and this is going to be our U prime. Let's do the same thing with N. N is 1, 2, 3 spaces from the line. So we're going to go 1, U prime is at 2. So then this dot right here next to that U prime is going to be where N prime goes. Then for the M down here at the bottom, it's 1 space to the left of the line, so we need to go 1 space to the right, draw our dot, and do M prime. Okay, now we need to connect our dots. Okay, so remember when you were younger and maybe you played the connect the dots game when you were coloring and that's basically what you're going to do here is you're going to draw lines between all these dots so that the shape we see looks exactly like the shape that we have on the left. Just like that. And I would say if you really want to be making sure your lines are nice and straight, you can use like a ruler or something. If you don't have a ruler though, using your lunch card or something like that is really easy to just pull out and put it down and use it as a ruler so that your lines are nice and straight. Okay. Now, if you look at the next two, they're still wanting us to do reflections. They are a little bit different just because of where the line of reflection is at. Okay. So, for example, I'm actually going to try to show you on this next one how we could maybe use our patty paper to help us do a reflection instead of trying to like count. Now, could you still count? Absolutely. The third one, could you still count on that one? Yes. It does get a little bit trickier on that third one because it's not a line that's straight up and down or like left to right. It's diagonal. And so it gets a little bit more confusing. And that's when maybe we want to use patty paper for now because it will help us make sure we're doing it correctly. Once you understand where the points are going to move to, then you maybe don't need to rely on it so much. But as we're learning how to do this, don't be afraid to pull out that patty paper and use it. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to trace my shape. And this is what you would be doing on your patty paper right now. So you would all be taking your patty paper, you'd lay it down on top of this in your notes here, and you would trace the shape J, P, Q, and I would want you to trace that line of reflection, okay? So I want you guys to do that, and I'm going to do it up here as well. Okay, I've got mine traced. Hopefully you guys have yours traces too. Now I didn't draw my line all the way through. I have to be really careful that I don't lift my pen at any time when I do my tracing because I'm going to want it to reflect everything in my picture. So I didn't go all the way through. I maybe could have, but it will work the same. What you're going to do now is you're going to take your patty paper, take your tracing here, and you're going to flip it up and down wise, okay? So you're going to imagine where that line is. You're going to take your pad paper, you're going to flip it over to the other side. You should still be able to see your shape, and then you should be able to lay it down right on top so that the lines of reflection match. And you'll notice that your shape has flipped over, and then you should be able to draw on there the new points for where the J, P, and Q prime should all go. So up here, I'm going to grab my tracing. I'm going to flip this. Like I said, I'm going to go up, down. All right. So see how my line of reflection is still kind of on top of itself. It moved slightly, but that, again, that's just because I can't be 100% perfect when I'm tracing up here. But when you're doing this now, you should be able to see where those points went to. Like where did the J, the P, and the Q go? Okay. So then what I would do is label those points. So grabbing here my pen again. This one was your Q, so we would label that Q prime. Down here was your P, so there's P prime. And right here is your J, so that's J prime. You could have done the exact same thing on that first one. You could have traced the shape, traced the line, reflected it over that line. The goal when you're doing the reflection is that you need to make sure your lines of reflection lay on top of each other because then it's going to move the shape the correct amount. If you don't have your line of reflection lined up, it's not going to do it right. Okay? So I want you guys to take a minute here, and I want you to do the third one. You can either use your pad paper, which if you're a little bit uncertain about what we're doing here, I would highly suggest that you use that pad paper. If you're feeling a little bit more confident and you want to try to count, go ahead and give it that a whirl. Just be really careful in like what directions you're moving the points. You should hopefully see when you're doing these. If it doesn't look right, then it probably means you did something wrong. Okay? So I want you to go ahead and try to do this one. Okay, so I'm going to show you where these points should have been. So your S prime should be right here. R prime should be right here. And T prime should be right here. If you didn't have that done correctly, fix it right now, okay? Hopefully if you used your patty paper, that you should have it pretty good and have it where it should be. I really, truly think the patty paper is like a foolproof way of doing these. It's really going to ensure that you're doing it correctly. If you counted your dots and you got maybe one in the wrong spot, again, it could just be because you didn't go in the right directions. Because this line is not just up and down, it's not just moving it, like you're not just counting left to right from the line. You have to think about it a little bit differently because of that line being diagonal. Okay? All right, now we've talked about this isometric dot paper. This is kind of leading us into the next thing, which is when we're actually going to put it on the coordinate plane here. Okay, so if you look at this next example that we have, I've got a whole list of points that I want us to work with here. I've got A, B, C, D, and then I've got another A, B, C here. And in the middle column is telling us how they want us to reflect it. So we need to talk a little bit about notation. When we talk about reflections and they want to use kind of like a shorthand, like when we abbreviate things and that, so that we don't have to write out reflection all the time, you're going to see notation like you see here in the middle, okay? The little r stands for reflection. So anytime you see little r in the future with problems that you're going to be doing on your own, they're telling you they want you to perform a reflection. That's going to be a lowercase letter, and then right next to it is going to be like a subscript. Maybe you've seen that before on like a formula, like slope formula, when we've done, x or like y2 minus y1, something like that. When you have that little subscript being written down there, that's telling you what they want you to reflect over. So it's going to be either an axis, like you're going to see the x-axis and the y-axis like we see on a couple of these here, or they're going to have like another smaller letter like M. Oh, I guess here's another axis, N and M. Those ones are talking about lines that they've put maybe on the graph, okay? So on the x-axis, remember that's the one that's going to go left to right. That's down here at the bottom. The y-axis is going to be the one that goes up and down. And then those little letters like the M and the N, those are the lines that they have drawn in here. Hopefully you can see them. I know they're a little bit hard to see like up here on mine just because everything's the same color. If they had put those lines in a different color, they'd be a little bit more obvious to us. So what they want us to do is we're going to put, look at A, because they've got A plotted here. And then we're going to look at how they want us to reflect it. And then we're going to reflect it over that. Now, again, you can use your patty paper here if you'd like to. I would say for this problem alone, because the lines that they want you to reflect over are all straight up and down lines or left to right lines, so they're all straight vertical or horizontal lines, it's probably safe for you to start maybe counting if you want to get more comfortable with that. Let's do a couple together, and then I'll give you some time to try to do the other one. So let's erase my markings here. And let's look at this first one. So we've got A is at -2.5. That's right here. It's already graphed for you. They want us to reflect A. So notice how that's in the parentheses after this notation here, over the x-axis. So we know what line they want us to reflect over, and that A in the parentheses is telling us what exactly we're reflecting. We already knew that we were reflecting the point A because that's what they gave us, but in the future they might give you like a whole bunch of points plotted, and then they might want you to do a reflection like on an entire shape or something. And so then they're going to have like all of those letters written in there. Okay, so the x-axis, remember, is down here. I'm just going to kind of go over it in red for right now. And then let's see, hopefully green will show up here on my graph. So A is right here. I want to reflect it over this x-axis. So what I'm going to do is count how far away from the x-axis A is. So A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares away from that line. So I need to go down 5 from the line. So down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. Hopefully you all can see that. And this is going to be my A prime. And then they also want us to name the coordinate. So in here, we're going to put these numbers in our parentheses. So on my x-axis, I went left 2, so that's -2, and then I went down 5. So I would write -2, -5. Okay, let's do another one here. Let's just scoot down to letter C. This one's a little bit different. They want us to do point C, which is down here in quadrant 4. It's at 3, -4. And they want us to reflect it over this line M. Now the line M is this line right here that goes up and down. Okay, so I'm going over that one in red right now, just to kind of highlight it for you guys. So C is 1, 2, 3 to the left of that line. So from the line, I need to go 1, 2, 3 over here, and that's my C prime. And then I'm going to name that. So that's over to the right 9, and it's down 4. So I'm going to write 9, -4. Okay, hopefully you're kind of starting to see how I'm doing that. If you're doing these problems on your own, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you highlighting some of those lines in like different colors to help them maybe stand out for you. I know I was counting up here just so that you can kind of start to see how that works. And like I said, these ones are easier to count on because all the lines are vertical or horizontal. If you still want to use your patty paper, that's fine. You can still put your patty paper down, trace the point, trace the line that they want you to reflect over, and then do that the same way that we did it up above. It should still get you the same answer, okay? What I want you to do here is take a couple minutes to finish out the rest of these. You're probably going to need to pause the video. And then when you're ready to look to see what the answer should have been, you can continue to play the video here. Okay, hopefully you've had time to do these problems on your own here. If you haven't or you forgot to pause the video, make sure you pause it now. I'm going to go through where these points should have been. So on letter B, they want us to do this point B over the y-axis. I'm also going to graph them for you so you can see where they should have been. So this one should have been at -5, +7. So on the graph, it should be over to the left 5 and then up 7 right there. And then I'm going to label that B prime. We already did C together. D wanted us to go over the x-axis. Okay, so that one as a coordinate should have been at 4, -4. So it should be right there, D prime. Now these last 3, I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky about whoever wrote these notes, okay? It wasn't me. These were all given to me by somebody else. I truly think that they shouldn't have called these last 3 points A prime, B prime, and C prime again because we already have an A prime, a B prime, and a C prime. So what I would suggest that you guys do is I would just add an additional little like tick to all of those so that it's A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. That's just helpful so that you can make sure you're keeping all those things separately. I really wish that what they would have done is just called those points different, or they would have maybe added on an E, an F, and a G or something like that, but they didn't. So we're just going to kind of go with what we got. But I would just make sure when you mark these that you call it A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. Don't just continue to call it A prime, B prime, C prime because it might be a little bit confusing. So for this letter E here, you should have been at -2, 1. Which is right here, and I'm going to label that A double prime. So I'm going to put 2 dashes next to it. For the B, it should have been at 7, 7. So there's B double prime. And then for C, it should be -3, -4. And that's C double prime. All right, so make sure you check over all of those and that yours match where mine were. If you have any of them in the wrong spot, fix it for yourself, okay? We've got one more piece here to get to in our notes today. And these ones are a little bit different because we have this shape that's put on our paper. We have no graph, like no grid lines, no isometric dot paper to help us with this. And the lines that we're reflecting over are cutting through the shape, okay? So for these ones, I would say patty paper is going to be extremely helpful here because you're going to want to trace everything on here and then almost like fold your patty paper over itself so that you can see where those letters are going to. Because what they're going to do is they're going to ask you to do a reflection on a certain letter, and they're going to want to know like where it went to and where it landed. So you're going to have to be able to almost imagine if you took this shape and you like folded it over on that line of reflection, where would it land? And so that's why I'm saying patty paper is going to be helpful because you can draw in all those lines. Remember when you were finding like lines of symmetry and you were folding a shape to see if it like matched up on both sides? You're kind of doing that same idea here, but you're just looking to see where does the point go over to meet the other side. All right, so I'm going to do a couple with you here. Like I said, before we even begin, I would take a minute here and trace everything about the shape. So get your pad paper out, lay it on top of this. I would trace all the lines and make sure that you label, put all the letters like the C, the B, the A, the H, all of those, and make sure that you label the lines of reflection as well, because they're going to be asking you to do different types of reflections in this problem. Okay, once we've got it traced out, we're going to start to do our reflections. So the first one, if we use our notation here, they want us to do a reflection over line M of point A. Okay, point A is right here. Okay, so I circled it on my paper. Now on M, M is this line right here. Okay, I want you to take your patty paper right now and I want you to fold the square over that line M that you drew in there. And I want you to tell me what letter is A sitting with now. Hopefully it's landing on C. Okay, if you almost think, and I wish I could just like pull this up here and just actually manipulate it with my hands, but I can't. And that's why we want to use that patty paper. But if I were to imagine taking this side, so taking this side of the rectangle here and flipping it over to this side, all of that would fold over in half. Okay, it's almost like you're folding that piece of paper down the middle. A is going to land on top of C. So we should be able to say that it goes to C. And that's all that they want you to do on this problem, is to figure out when you do these reflections, what letter does it match up with on the other side? Okay, let's do one more. Let me erase my markings here. We'll start fresh. So for this, let's go to, so we did A, let's do E. Let's do a reflection of point H, so H is right here, over line N. Okay, line N is right here. So again, take your patty paper. Now what I want you to do is fold it along line N and see where that H goes. Okay, good. Hopefully you're seeing that it goes over to B, all right? Now before I let you try some of these on your own, there's a couple on the second hand side here that look a little bit different. Let's do D together. So D is written a little bit backwards. They are actually telling us that we did a reflection over line P. So line P is this one. However, they are not telling you what they reflected. They're just telling you where it landed. So it landed at B. What point, if I took my patty paper here and I folded it along that line P, what point did they reflect to land onto B? Hopefully you're seeing it's F. So it works the same way. It's just the notation is different here because they're asking you to think about this a little bit backwards, okay? So why don't you take like a minute, minute and a half, and try to do the remaining ones here. And then when you're ready, go ahead and continue to watch this video and I'll go through what the answer should have been. Okay, so we did a couple of these together. Let's just rapid fire here, go through these. For letter B, we should have been at G. Letter C should have been B. We did D and E. F should have been B. G should have been A. And H should have been E.